Growing up across the street from a golf course, Jesse Guilford had early aspirations to hit golf balls high and far through the air.
An interesting anecdote about Jesse Guilford: when he was a young boy, 10 years old, he would watch the golfers go by his father's property, which was a farm up in New Hampshire. And on that particular part of the course, it doglegged greatly to the right. There was a huge stand of trees, probably 225 yards out, that if you could get over those trees, you would shorten that hole considerably. And a lot of the good golfers did that. So with an old club that he had and a ball, he'd go out there and he'd whack away at the ball. He would hit the ball as hard as he could because he thought that's the way the game was played. And he never varied from that.
By the time he moved to Massachusetts, the self-taught Guilford was considered to be one of the longest hitters of his time. That distinction earned him a nickname, the human siege gun.
So when he got to that 1914 amateur in Vermont, observers saw him hitting the ball with such ferocity and hitting it so far. It was almost unheard of in those days, with those wooden shafted clubs and the simple balls that they had. And someone said that he hits that ball like a human siege gun. And it got into print.
It was at that 1914 U.S. amateur that Guilford developed a lifelong friendship with another young phenom and future Hall of Famer, Francis Ouimet.
When Francis Ouimet exploded on the national scene with his win in the 1913 U.S. Open, and subsequently his victory in Vermont at the 1914 amateur, Jesse Guilford was well aware of this and wanted to emulate it. He heard about Francis, he knew about Francis, and he knew that Francis came from Woodland Golf Course, the Woodland Golf Club in Newton, and he began his tutelage under Che Burgess, my great-grandfather. So at that time, the early teens and throughout the 20s, Che Burgess mentored and worked with both Francis and, of course, Jesse. Francis and Jesse had a very strong, friendly relationship. Both men were rather reserved. Both of them were born literally either across the street or right next to a golf course. So it was sort of in their DNA to play the game, and they did, and they did it well.
If it were not for Ouimet, Jesse Guilford may have been considered the greatest Massachusetts golfer of his time. Despite that, Guilford won the Massachusetts Amateur 3 times, and in 1919 became the first amateur to win the Mass Open. The most iconic victory of Jesse Guilford's career came when he won the 1921 U.S. Amateur at St. Louis Country Club.
He faced a very, very difficult field to get through. Of course, Francis was in that field. Chick Evans, Jerome Travers, and Robert Gardner were the big names in amateur golf at that time. And Jesse had to face each of them as he made his way through the different rounds of the amateur. And he won in grand fashion, and he impressed people. And that win established him. He became a household name. He actually had a column in the local Boston papers, a weekly column where he would give golf advice. So he became quite famous in the 20s and remained so. And then to complement that, the advent or the establishment of the Walker Cup was also very, very important to his development in his career in golf, when he was named as one of the original members of the first Walker Cup and remained on the team for 3 out of the first 4 meetings.
Guilford and Ouimet also applied their skills during 2 critical times in U.S. history.
During World War I, both men served in the Army. Jesse had a lot of mechanical skill. He was quite skilled mechanically, and didn't take the Army too long to realize that they had 2 of the greatest golfers in America in uniform. So what they did was they used those golfers as fundraisers for the USO he participated in a lot of events to promote the game of golf, for the good of golf, during these hard times during the Depression. And he teamed up with Francis in best ball matches during the 30s against very famous professional golfers to not only raise funds for different causes and support golf in general, but to keep golf in the spotlight.
Jesse Guilford, one of the most prolific golfers of his era in Massachusetts and the entire country, is now fittingly paid tribute to with his induction into the Massachusetts Golf Hall of Fame.
Being inducted into the Hall of Fame and being recognized all these years afterwards is a huge honor, a tremendous honor for a man who was humble, quiet, and didn't seek out these sorts of things. He was not a person to have any sort of self-aggrandizement or self-promotion. He's a quiet, humble guy that made a tremendous impact on the game of golf. And it's so rewarding to an observer like myself to have Jesse up there honored with Francis and Ted Bishop and all the other greats from not only Woodland, but from the Massachusetts and New England. It's a great honor. He's where he should be. And I'm sure if he was here, he would say, thank you very much, and not much more than that.